Hello and welcome to Talkin' Shit, where we are talking all kinds of shit. Schitt's Creek, that is. I'm Jess Sterling, one of the co-hosts of Talkin' Shit, and of course, I'm here with my friend Stuart. Stuart? You look so funky. What a funky outfit you have on, Stuart.
How dare you? Already coming out hot with that. First off, you throw me off with a new intro style that we're trying to
What
guess.
do we think? Do we like the new intro? What is it good? Do I need to workshop it more? I don't know what I'm
Not
doing.
against it. I mean, we
Okay.
are here to really
All right.
talk all kinds of shit, aren't we?
I mean,
Kind of makes
yes.
total sense.
Okay,
But yeah,
great.
calling me funky? How dare you?
I feel like it's a compliment because David's outfits are pretty interesting. And I don't know, interesting is a kind word, huh? They're fun.
already,
They're different.
already, you're just jumping on the same as Stevie did. It's just, there's something.
Yeah. I mean,
It's a
he's
real hit and
unique.
miss bit of fashion, I think.
I think that tends to happen when you like only wear black and white.
Well, yeah.
It,
I mean,
it you know.
if you go through the full gamut of all articles of clothing and only pick out black and white, eventually you can like go to the extremes of like what really constitutes a jumper or a sweater. Sorry, should I say for the Americans out there, and like whether or not it does kind of stray into the whole like blanket or throw kind of like territory.
Mhm.
But I think,
Like a
I mean,
poncho, yeah.
yeah, but David's rocking it. Like David's like no qualms. David's
He
loving
wears
himself.
the clothes, he doesn't let the clothes wear him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you are listening to this podcast in the post show recaps feed, the community building feed, first of all, thank you so much. But also make sure you subscribe to us, Talking Shit. That's talking without a G and SCHITT for the word shit. Because post show recaps is ending like very soon. And so don't miss the opportunity to subscribe. Of course, you could also follow us on social media at Talking Shit. We're on YouTube. Like I said before, you can see Stuart's funky.
My very funky hoodie and t-shirt, which I
So
wear every
funny.
single time.
Yeah, also, actually, I just realized that you have that in common with David, don't you? Don't you only pretty much wear, like, black? I feel like you do. I feel like you're that person who wears, like, a lot of gray and black.
Yeah, I mean, I went through a whole thing a couple of years back where I was just like kind of frustrated with having to pick clothes, and I didn't want to go down the whole like tech bro avenue of having like the same outfit,
Mhm.
everything. But I
Steve
did
Jobs-ing it
buy,
up.
yeah, but I did buy 20 black t-shirts, all in the same variety, and just because it's like if I'm constantly wearing hoodies over them, who
Uh-huh.
cares about the t-shirt underneath? I have
Uh-huh.
two t-shirts that aren't black t-shirts, and that's
Are
it.
they white, though?
No,
Oh, good. Okay. Because I'm like,
one-
if they're just black
one's
or
grey
white.
and one's dark green.
Are you kidding me? You just tried to say, like, oh, I have two different colored t-shirts, and one of them is gray, which is basically just a lighter shade of black?
Look, look, if you're here to get your fashion from me, I think you're gonna be
I mean,
lost.
I don't know why I'm talking. I literally spend 95% of my day in like leggings and a sweatshirt. But you know what? They're colorful. I'm wearing it's a pink hoodie.
The advantages of working from home.
There you go. So
Exactly.
yeah, you can watch us on YouTube. Also, if you want to send in feedback, podcast at talkingshit.com. But let's talk about the episode, Stuart. We're talking about season 1, episode 4, Bad Parents. And
Hmm.
shall I start off with a little recap of our episode before we dive into the conversation?
Yeah, please do, because this one was a doozy.
Okay. Are the Roses good parents? They sent their kids to the best boarding schools and hired the best nannies, but they also don't know Alexis's middle name. So, not great. Johnny is bothered by their lack of connection with their children, but the kids are resistant to ice breaking games like Two Truths and a Lie, which we'll have to have a conversation about that because it just feels
Mhm.
like you have to. David is forced to find a new home for his funky clothing, but unfortunately, Schitt's Creek doesn't exactly have David's keen eye for fashion. Luckily, Stevie agrees to house his clothing as long as she can wear it, which he resists. He resists a little bit, but he agrees to. Alexis starts community service because she once got a DUI for driving a car into a Prada storefront because it apparently looked like a parking garage. Sure. Turns out Mutt
Yeah.
is also doing community service for selling drugs. And Alexis sees Mutt secretly meeting with Jocelyn and assumes they're having an affair. But it turns out that Mutt is a shit. So that's
Wild.
exciting. By the end of the episode, Moira still can't remember Alexis's middle name, but at least David's clothes are out of Johnny's closet. So that's a win, I guess.
Progression? Yes. There was
Uh,
there was a setup. It
mhm.
changed. Wonderful. We have
Yeah.
development.
And that's our episode. So a lot to go through here, but where do you want to start, Stuart? What is the biggest headline for you of this episode?
Oh, I mean, this one was a real kind of stretch. It was really dense. A lot
Hmm.
happened in this one that I wasn't really expecting. Alexis, though, with the DUI, I
Yeah,
didn't think they'd go down that route. I thought that they might kind of like play her as being typically kind of entitled and things like that, but I didn't think they'd go to the
yeah.
extent of actually having like giving her a DUI in her backstory. Admittedly, it's played to be funny because she drives into a Prada store on Rodeo Drive, which is
Hmm.
just the mental image of that is hilarious. But then equally, DUIs awful. Please
Oh
don't
yeah, of
drive
course. Like
under the influence.
I think it's really tricky when you have a character that does have some sort of like substance abuse situation while driving, like
Mhm.
DWI, DUI. I think it's always like tough to play that off as a joke, but I think Schitt's Creek does a pretty good job of it by like queuing
Yeah.
it up with the like fact that it was a Prada store and that she says it looked like a parking garage. And that she's doing, she's doing community service. Obviously, this is a really great plot hook to get her and Mutt closer together. They're interacting more. But I do love Ronnie saying orange is the new orange. She's gonna have to wear an orange vest.
I like issuing out the kind of vests, and then Alexis just being like, "No," and it's like you don't get a choice in this. You're wearing it.
Mhm. And yet
Oh
she
god.
does not let it affect her fashion choices, Stuart, because she's still picking up litter on the streets in high heels and cutie little short shorts.
Even in the second day, like she knows what to expect. She knows how difficult it's going to make her life.
Mhm.
But no, fashion comes first.
And
You
she
got to
will not
appreciate
let
that.
Schitt's Creek dull her twinkle, Stuart. Just
I mean, by twinkle, do you mean the little headband that she was wearing on the first day? Like,
Do you
just the
remember when those
absolute.
were like a thing? Like I feel like it was very much in the maybe they still are, but it feels very early days of Coachella to me.
I mean, you say if they still are. I'm wondering if they ever were. That's my kind of
Well, the
question there.
70s, I think, right? The 70s with the headbands around the forehead.
Yeah, but the thing
I
is,
always
like,
just
hers
left
was,
a
like,
dent in
properly
my forehead.
bejeweled. Oh my god,
Yeah,
if
but
it
the
leaves a
problem
dent, that's
is,
awkward.
well, I have a big head. But also the problem with the Lexus is it's only bejeweled on half of it. So then the back half just looks ridiculous.
It's giving Claire's, isn't it? Like, real
It
kind of accessories of
yes.
just, like, fake bejewels and things like that. That's probably why she got to keep them because there's probably not much value. That's plastic for
Swarovski
sure.
crystals. Yeah. So yeah, she's doing her community service and she's doing it with Mutt, who we know she like has a bit of a thing for, right? She calls him handsome
Mhm.
about 5 times this episode. And she's
Oh,
very
it made me laugh.
curious about his relationship with Twyla. And then I want to know, Stuart, you were very quick to pick up on this while watching this episode. It felt like almost instantly you were like, yeah, there's no way that Mutt is actually having an affair with Jocelyn.
There's in no world in which I can see Alexis as being the super sleuth that she is and arriving at the right thing. Like, this
Mhm.
show is not setting her up to be like a super detective and to really like arrive at things. So immediately I was like, okay, well, this isn't going to be what it is. Who could he be? And I at
Mhm.
first went with thinking that it was going to be like Jocelyn's son, but then I
Mhm.
also wondered whether or not it could be like her brother or something
Yeah,
like
cuz
that. So I was a bit kind of up in
age-wise,
the air.
yeah, age-wise, Mutt is if you're thinking Mutt is close to Alexis's age, that would mean that Jocelyn and Roland had him fairly young. Because I
Mhm,
assume they're, like, late 40s or in their 40s, and if you think Mutt's in his late 20s, then that would
mhm.
mean, yeah, pretty young.
But the thing that makes that even like kind of crazier is that that means that Roland and Jocelyn have been together for the entirety of Mutt's life, which means it's a long relationship, which means Jocelyn is the most patient woman in the world. And I want to give her all of the awards because
Yeah.
I thought that perhaps her and Roland were like a more recent thing, like maybe a later in life
No.
getting together thing. No, they've probably been like high school sweethearts or something.
Yeah, they've been together for a while.
Oh,
So Mutt is Mutt Shit, which just continues the trend of very silly names, Mutt Shit, Dog Shit. I
yeah,
feel like you kind of saw this coming, especially with the naming convention. It makes a lot of sense. But I
yeah.
will say, speaking of sleuths, I did pause down on the episode and like do the enhance, enhance, enhance as much as I could to see. Because here's the thing, sometimes shows will like take it a bridge too far in my opinion in terms of the physical closeness between a parent and their child, right?
Mhm,
I am not a touchy-feely person in general. I also just I wouldn't think to ever hold my parents' hand, Like that was a little weird to
mhm.
me. I did check, hands cupped, not fingers laced, which is good because it's like this is preschool hand holding is the hands cupped. It's
Okay.
relationship hand holding is when the hands are, fingers are laced. However, she also like they kiss on the mouth, Stuart.
Yeah. There's a there's a point in which that becomes not a thing that should be done, right?
Yeah. I mean, yes, in my opinion, yes. Like I would
Yeah.
never kiss my parents on the mouth now. What? I'm
Mhm.
an adult.
It's quite strange. So David Beckham, like famous footballer and things like that, he's notoriously like kind of really riling up the British press because he posted like a picture yonks ago of him kissing his daughter on the mouth, and then every now and then they post another picture of them like doing it, and it's almost like two fingers up to the press kind of situation. I was like,
Yeah.
It's still a bit weird though. Maybe just cut it out. Like, just
I feel like
stop it.
yeah, they were going because they hugged, which again, hugging is, in my opinion, very normal and whatever. But then they kissed, and I was like, okay, that's a bit too much. But it turns out, yes, Jocelyn is indeed his mother, and the reason that Roland and Mutt don't necessarily get along is because he's like, well, my dad really wants me to be mayor. It's like a big thing for him, and Roland can't stand that Mutt like makes his own clothes and doesn't drive vehicles and basically cares about
Doesn't
the
deal in
environment.
plastic.
Yeah. How talk about birth control. And I'm like, what are we talking about condoms, Roland? Like there are other options in case you weren't aware, but honestly,
Yeah,
I yeah,
latex
he might not be
allergies
a
are
fan.
a thing,
Yeah.
but maybe I'm too kind of tapped into the whole Succession mindset here. But the moment I heard that he like wanted Mutt to be the mayor and things like that, all I could think was dynasty of like getting control of the town, and I was like,
Mhm.
this is how the shit like the Roses could do it. This is how like Alexis could be that bridge between the two
Oh,
families.
marry
We could
into the
have like
shit
a
family.
merger. Yeah, we can have an absolute Womsgans going on like with this whole situation and somehow bridge the gap between the two and the Roses can take control of Schitt's Creek. Then I reminded myself it's not that show.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's
it is
probably
funny
not
to
what we're
think
going for.
about though, like especially the idea of like Alexis marrying into the shit family. And like I know there are people out there who wouldn't date someone based on their first name because like let's pretend you met someone, you really liked them and their name was like your dad's name or something. It's like, "Ugh, that's a bit weird, a little uncomfy." Um I wonder if Alexis would be like as soon as she finds out Mutt's last name is shit, if she's just like, "Ugh, I don't know if I'm in anymore."
If not only just for that, but also for the fact that if they were to get married and she were to take his name, that her name would be Alex's shit. So probably just an absolute non-starter right there.
Exactly, because we don't know what her middle name actually is.
What is this mystery? It's so silly that
Mhm.
this absolutely captivated me as much as it did because I was just there at the beginning. I was like, okay, she doesn't know. It's really funny. But then by the end, I was like, but what is it? Why are you not
Yeah.
telling us what it is? And the fact that Alexis is not revealing it is just top tier pettiness in my book. The like,
Yeah.
but what is Moira doing? Filling out a form with Alexis's first and last name and then leaving the middle name and asking her to just fill that in. Just skip that and get her to fill it out the whole thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely like showed her hand completely, which obviously sets up the joke, but as Moira does it, I was like, "Moira, come on, girl. Get your head together."
Yeah, and I love how she just keeps guessing as if she might just stumble upon the correct name. Jared sent us in some feedback, and he says, "What does Stuart think Alexis's middle name is, and was this secretly cross promotion with Elspeth coming to CBS?" Stuart, is it just me, or was I was thinking that was Moira's way she pronounces Elizabeth was Elspeth, but is
Oh,
Elspeth like
no,
an actual name?
it is. I've known a couple, in my
Really?
life. Yeah. Um, weird that I've known multiples, but yeah, it's kind of a rare name, but it does exist. And it does seem to be that kind of like whimsical fairy tale name that I imagine that Moira might give. But then I also
Yeah.
just remember that she also called her son David, which is like kind of very far from the fact like an Elspeth and a
Mhm.
David doesn't really kind of match up. Um, as for what I think it is,
Mhm.
it's got to be something embarrassing, right? Or something really
Oh, so we're thinking
ostentatious.
like a Chandler Muriel Bing situation.
Oh, yes. If it could be something
Okay.
like that, I'd really love it.
Okay.
Um, but in terms of contenders, I have no idea at this stage. So I'm
Yeah, because
excited to
I'm
find out
trying to
what it is.
remember exactly the ones they guessed. Because I know Moira guessed Emma and Elsbeth, and Johnny, did he say Anne or Anna or something like that, I think at one point this
I
episode?
think it was Hannah.
Oh, Hannah, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a few, I think. It was like
Yeah.
Emma, Hannah, Elspeth. Yeah.
So, those are the ones we can rule out at the very least.
Mhm.
But yeah, that storyline always cracks me up, and I especially love the conversation they have at the beginning of the episode where they're like, "We don't really know our kids very well, and like maybe we should find out what's going on in their lives." Like Johnny doesn't even know how to get his kids into a room with him, which at the very least Moira is, and he did what? Like he put his what where? Just very easy to get someone into a room with her. But
It was
I
so
loved
fun.
yeah, I love Johnny's attempts though, right? Like he's so sincere in like his drive to get to know his children. I think it's so funny when Moira says, as of late we've had little interest in what's going on in your lives. And he's like, "No, no idea, not interest." Like I care, please.
The thing is, like, Johnny has the want to get to know his kids, but like as Moira pointed out when in Cafe Tropical with Jocelyn, listen to the kids. And she does clearly listen because she knows exactly what is going to trigger them. Like even at the
Mhm.
end where it was like he's trying to do all the different ways to get them in, and then like Moira just does it in an absolute flash. It was like, what the heck? But why do
Mhm.
parents always do that? Why do they always do that? Like where they go, "Oh, can you come here?" And it's like, but you want to talk to me. You come. Why do you always have to come to them? Why are
Mhm. Cuz
parents like that?
it's the hierarchy, it's the structure of the family. They're always up
Rubbish.
here. I
Get in
know.
the bin.
But yeah, Johnny is so sincere, right? Like he wants to play two truths and a lie, which he mistakes as two lies and a truth. And like everyone's getting all confused, but the kids are like not having any of it. We get a revelation from from Alexis that she's been like, yeah, she was once left in the trunk of of someone's car as a teenager. And it's just like goes to show you first how little Alexis thinks of this as like a big thing or an odd thing that's happened to someone, but also that Johnny had no idea this had ever happened. And Moira doesn't know because she quote unquote doesn't do girl talk.
It was brilliant. But like escaping from a Thai drug lord's car trunk by bribing them with sex is like, wow.
Mhm.
And and I just love the fact he doesn't realize it at first because he just thinks of it as being so absurd and thinks it's the eye color, and then it has to be Moira is just
Yep.
pointing that out. That's like, no, 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 that's not the lie.
Yeah, her eyes are aqua.
Oh, Aqua. But yeah,
Mhm.
Alexis just plays it off as if it's like kind of normal behavior, which kind of just shows how like such a strange life that they used to live,
Yeah.
which kind of forgives a lot of their behavior now because if you've gone through that kind of weird stuff, like life is just an absurdity. So why
Mhm.
should you care about it? But
Yeah, and this is gonna be a very common thing with Alexis that she constantly will just, like, spout off these one-liners of, like, you did what? Excuse me? Say that
mhm.
again?" So yeah, I love Alexis's little one-liners that she has. But let's talk a little bit more about David, who, like we said, he's forced to clean out all his clothes from Johnny's closet, and so he enlists Stevie to help him. And she's like, "Well, you could sell some of this stuff." And David has very high opinions of his luxury clothing. And Stuart, he wants to sell a pair of pants that were handmade in Paris for $850.
Yes. The thing is, he knows the value that he paid. He doesn't know the value of them, which is kind of like I think a really telling thing about him.
Mhm.
Well, when we were watching this together, commented saying those pants have better have $825 in the pockets, and I just lost it because it's true. They're probably worth about $25. It's just the markup of just LA and that kind of lifestyle.
Mhm.
Um, I love the fact that we opened with Stevie already there, like as if Stevie and David are hanging out and it's just
Yeah,
like a common thing. Totally caught the friendship. I'm
you
claiming
did,
that.
yeah.
But yeah, to see them hanging out and being friends is kind of heartwarming. I kind of like that David's got a friend here.
Well, yeah, especially because 'cause they're so different, right? Like, they're going through his clothes, and she's like, "I got my outfit off a clearance rack at Target." Like, meanwhile, I can't tell what some of your clothing is. And,
Hmm.
the guy at the thrift store not
Oh, Wayne,
appreciating any of David's clothing is just he's like, "You've lost my trust, and you've lost my business."
my business.
He leaves. And I think a lot of people I know, I think was it Emily had made a comment of like, why wouldn't he try to sell his clothes online? Which is very fair. And then he does try to do that. And it doesn't
Hmm.
go well for him. What was it? Eyes for Fash doesn't think his sunglasses are real.
Such, I think it was like Ice for Fashion 87. It was like a really obscure
Mhm.
username. And just everyone's had that experience of selling something online and just having the absolute kind of like headache that comes with it.
Mhm.
But of course, he's wanting to sell them for like bucket loads. And I think it's probably a better venture than going to a thrift store in Schitt's Creek to try and do that. But oh dear, I wonder if perhaps he has just spent all of this money on just funky clothes that are
Yeah.
just worthless.
I mean, the thing is, like, sure, he doesn't need that much clothes. Like, we saw a heaping pile on that twin
Mhm.
bed. However, if he's not going to get much money for them, my argument would be like, just keep the clothes because, like,
Yeah,
I guess, like, yeah, he had a bag boy job for like an hour and he currently doesn't have any work lined up. But I don't know that this is the best use of David's time is trying to sell his clothes that are quote unquote funky and like very unique to the point where like it's not gonna have a wide appeal to most people.
yeah. But also, let's just factor in, like, David is the only one thus far to have had a job. Like, he's 100% been more employed than the rest of the family thus far. Why is it up to David to be the breadwinner of this family? Like, Johnny and Moira
Yeah.
are out there, like,
Moira
get
said it's tough to do those things amidst all the chaos, Stuart. She's like, Johnny's reading the newspaper and she's sitting by her wig wall.
I love that there is a wig wall now. Like they found
Mhm.
their home, and hopefully we're going to see more of them. Sadly, not as many in this episode, but the fact that they are there on the show kind of fills me with a bit of joy. But I love the fact that like David is also just taking over their room without even asking, and then when prompted,
Mhm.
it's just like we'll just hang them over like the other ones. Like
And
it's no
then
big
he has
deal.
the audacity to say, "Who needs 15 gray suits?"
Yeah, when you can have 15 black t-shirts.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, that's kind of what Dave but they come to an agreement where Stevie will house the clothing for David in this extra motel room seemingly with like a very sexy romantic bed.
Did did someone have the absolute audacity to build a honeymoon suite in this motel?
Certainly seems like it.
Who is envisaging that anyone is gonna honeymoon in Schitt's Creek and also appreciate that bed in the same kind of idea? The bed is awful. I imagine it
Mhm.
has seen some things, given that the what we've heard about Schitt's Creek thus far, and I can't imagine it's too pretty. But the fact that it's dusty and is only good for storing clothes now kind of makes sense.
I love that Stevie's like the idea that there is some sort of a honeymoon suite sort of situation, but that it is never used so much so that it is used for storage now. Like that no one
Hmm.
would ever book this room and there's no risk of
Yeah,
anyone ever booking it.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But also, like, I love the Stevie's little compromises. Like, yeah, you can store them in here, but I want to wear it all. It's like Stevie's coming over to the funky side. Like Stevie's
Yeah.
learning a bit of David, and I can see the two rubbing off on each other, which I really love.
Yeah, I think it's funny because you can imagine Stevie, she's from this very small town, works in Schitt's Creek, doesn't, she buys her clothes on the clearance rack at Target, doesn't exactly have a ton of like cultural awareness or just like experience. And then all of a sudden
Mhm.
this guy David comes into her life and she's like, "Oh, okay. These funky shoes look kind of interesting though."
Mm. And I like that Stevie is open like that. Like Stevie could be really judgmental and just be like,
Mhm.
no, these are just vapid LA people with their kind of lifestyles that I will never understand. But then she like is taking the time to like talk to David, is to understand David and to like kind of give some of the clothes that initially kind of like are a bit out there and actually look
Mhm.
at them and go, actually, I like this one. Maybe I'll like more and
Yeah.
things like that. And yeah, I think that kind of like speaks to a really good character in Stevie.
Mhm.
I just hope, I hope that there isn't anything nefarious going on here and that Stevie's not like slyly like pulling stock out of the closet and then selling it elsewhere and betraying David. If that happens, I'm gonna cry.
Yeah. All right. What else this episode? Anything else that we haven't already touched on, Stuart, that you wanted to talk about?
So there was the actual um the the actual idea of like Rose video being referenced like properly for the first time of like,
Mhm.
and to find out that really Johnny is this real corporate stuffy suited guy that goes on these like team building retreats, which just absolutely fill me with dread. Can't stand the idea of that. What else was there? Twyla, her whole situation, and like divulging what was going on with her mum, and I was like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's like
Could be
way
worse.
could be worse. But also, how is Twyla so happy in the face of that? Like,
She's
it's one thing
just
to like
good-natured.
kind of. She is. I mean, maybe because she's getting some loving from mum. Maybe that's cheering her up. Maybe, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, she could be getting some other things from Mutt. We turns out he not only he sold pot, uppers,
Hmm.
mushrooms, anything you want, Mutt has it.
I mean, good on Ma. I mean, get that side hustle and take advantage of really stupid drug laws that are in North America, wherever this is.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean this is a really fun episode. We did have some feedback, Stuart. Will asked, "Did you ever try to sell something online and it went as bad as it did for David?"
I can't say I've really dabbled in selling stuff online. My brother has though, a hell of a lot. My brother like does a lot of like collecting stuff and selling it, and he's had some real horror stories of like having to pay shipping and customs and things like that, which is the worst thing
Mhm.
about buying things in the UK. Thank you, right wing media, for Brexit. I love having to pay extortionate delivery fees these days. But yeah, I've never really got into the whole like eBay game or clothes, like reclothing, like kind of
Yeah.
selling that stuff. What about you?
No, I've never I just don't really have interest in it. I
Mm,
generally am not like I don't want to have to deal with any of that. I'm not a collector of really anything. So I don't know what I would even, I know there are people who will like buy a piece of furniture, flip it, and then, sell
mhm,
it on Facebook Marketplace or something.
yeah,
Not me, couldn't be bothered. But I appreciate the hustle. And
mhm.
I think it
I'd
could
love to
work
have
in
that
certain
energy.
situations. Yeah. Yeah. Just not for
Yeah, I
me.
don't know where people find the time in the day, like, to be able to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. What other feedback did we get, Stuart?
So we got an email in from Christina who's harking back to an earlier comment that we made, which was, I can tell you that I do wear actual pajamas to bed every night. whether it's a matching set or most often a nightgown, which gives me full on Ebenezer Scrooge vibes once more. But never fear. I read almost exclusively Heartstopper fanfic before bed, not Dostoevsky or anything. So us pajama wearers aren't as fancy as you might think. Loving the podcast. Can't wait to go on this journey with you, which is the best feedback. Um, I, even if it's Heartstopper fanfic, that's still like way more
You're
better
reading.
than the
You're not on
whole.
TikTok. Give yourself credit,
Exactly, you're not
Christina.
doom scrolling, so lord it up over us, why don't you?
Yeah. I will say, like, I am a big fan of, like, matching pajama sets because they make you feel so fancy, like, when you wear that you just
Mhm.
feel, like, a little put together, and I do wanna shout out, like, we're not sponsored. If you wanna sponsor us, please, by all means. But there's a company called Pajamagram, and they sell, like, kind of expensive, but very, very comfortable, durable pajamas, and I love them, and every year, my husband gets me a pair of pajamas from Pajamagrams. Every year for Christmas. And they're so comfortable. So, do what you
Do you
want.
have, like,
Check
a
'em out.
David level of wardrobe of just pajamas just all hung up?
No, but I do have the same pair of pajamas in 3 colors
I
'cause
mean,
I really like the
if
style
it's
of them.
comfortable, it's comfortable, that's the thing.
Exactly. It works.
Yeah,
So if you
incredible.
want to send in feedback, you can email us podcast@talkingshit.com, find us on social media at Talking Shit, all of that good stuff. Let's get into some ratings, Stuart. So, who this episode was simply the best for you?
Simply the best. I think this one has to go to Stevie in my books. I think that she helped David out when she really doesn't have to. She could just work and ignore him. But yeah, she indulges him. She kind of gives him time of day. Took him to the thrift store of all places, even though
Mhm.
she probably knew that it wasn't it was a bit of a pointless endeavor. Yes, Stevie gets it in my book this week.
Okay. I'm going to give mine to Johnny. And it's because I feel like he is entirely heartfelt in wanting to know what's going on in his kids' lives. Like, I really do. I think he actually is like, were we bad parents? Like, should we try to fix some of the wrongs that we've done to our kids in the past and find out what's going on in their lives? Like, Moira feels a little less wanting to, even if she may know more than Johnny does, but, like, Johnny actually seems genuinely interested, and I feel like, I don't know, he's trying, and I wanted to give him a little bit of credit because he is trying.
Too late. Put in the effort early on, Johnny. Then you'll reap the rewards later on. You could be where Moira is, and you could be apathetic right now and indulge the fact that your life has gone to shit.
I love
Instead,
that
you're playing
Moira
catch up.
is where we're striving to be.
Exactly.
We have no
But
interest in what's going on in your lives. It's just ridiculous. What about who was the disgruntled pelican this episode? Not a ton of Roland, although we do get, like, one scene of him, so
and
depending
he
on how you
wasn't
feel
that
about food
bad in it.
stealing. Yeah, he
I
stole some of
mean,
Johnny's breakfast, but,
he wasn't eating it. It's fine. I
he
think
was done.
Roland, yeah, Roland, I think gets a pass this week. A well-deserved
Mm.
one for not being in it that much. Okay, I'm gonna give it to Alexis this week.
Ooh, Alexis. Is it the
hmm
DUI that pushed you over the edge?
It's the DUI, which I know is super serious for like a comedy show and stuff like that, and I should take that serious. But it's also for like indulging in the gossip and just clearly getting like the wrong message from something that she's seen immediately. And also,
Mhm.
I can't get over just articulating a wink, which was
I
ridiculous.
love that. I love when someone winks and then just goes, "Wink."
It's just so cringy.
It's the best.
And then just talking to Mutt and just being like, where was it? I know you probably think that you're this handsome man around town who's like handsome, mysterious, and handsome and homelessy. But you're better than that, you know. It's like, how can someone say that line and like not think of themselves as a parody? Alexis takes it by a country mile for me this week.
Interesting because I the disgruntled pelican for me was not Alexis. Um Instead, it's someone who blew off community service, um, kissed his mom on the mouth, just you know what? You kiss your parents on the mouth and you get a disgruntled pelican point. Mutt is the LVP for me this episode. I mean, listen, Alexis, this is our first day of community service, and you're like, sorry, gotta go, cover for me. Bro, what? Like, not happening. Absolutely not.
He's
So
been
yeah,
there. He's done this. He knows that it's like, I mean, Schitt's Creek's going to look like Schitt's Creek, whether or not there's community service or not. He
you know.
knows that it's futile.
So, but kissing his mom on the mouth, come on, Stuart.
Yeah, I
Unforgivable.
mean, yeah. I mean, he wasn't slipping tongue, but it's still unforgivable. It's just.
Just the idea of it.
Uh,
Like, especially like, okay, I'm just thinking from Jocelyn's point of view, right? Like, your kid is little and you kissed him on the mouth, whatever. Then your kid has a full beard and you're kissing them on the
yeah.
mouth. It's just, it's just not okay. It's not
Ugh,
okay.
ugh,
Yeah.
no,
See,
no.
that's why he got my disgruntled pelican point. So yeah, that's where our LVPs and MVPs ranked this episode. But next, it is time to tier rank our episode. As usual, we have our tier list. At the top is hot shit, then full bouquet. Love that journey for me. You, David, and shit out of luck. So far, we have the drip and don't worry, it's his sister and love that journey for me. And the pilot, our cup runneth over in you, David. Stuart, do you have any inklings of where you'd like to put bad parents?
Before I was umming and ahhing over previous episodes, this is the first one where I was immediately like, I know exactly where I want to put this. Full
Hmm.
bouquet, straight in there if you're in agreement.
Interesting. Cause okay, so from my perspective, and I won't say exactly why because I don't want to like spoil anything for the future. This episode for me was more a love that journey for me because I felt like the David storyline, while I really love the David and Stevie stuff, doesn't
Mhm.
go super far. I love the Johnny stuff. Like, I love the idea that you're having this epiphany that, like, I actually don't know my children very well. And I kind of want to rectify that. And I love that as an idea. Moira not knowing Alexis's last name is iconic. It's just simply
Yeah.
iconic. The Alexis and Mutt stuff is fine, but I don't know that I like love the like misdirect, even though they like fix it in like 10 minutes of like, oh,
Mhm.
Jocelyn is in Mutt's like affair or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you feel strongly that full bouquet is where it belongs, I'll go with that instinct because I think I'm like on the higher end of a love that journey for me anyway. So I wouldn't mind changing it up and listen, look at I can move them if you're watching us on YouTube. And so we can always
Yeah.
move things around if we feel the need to.
Well, this is the thing. I'm wondering if maybe we don't clear Hot Shit and Full Bouquet, like, kind of, and keep those free for how this can get better. If this is kind of like the best of the bunch so far, I think putting it in Love That Journey for me, but
Mhm.
on the upper end of the
On the
scale,
high
I
end,
think
yeah.
that works for us because then it clears us. So when something is like a full bouquet and the pair of us like fully agree, it's like bam, that's like where that
Yeah,
one
and I
breaks it,
do
which I
think
like.
yeah, as we move forward, I do expect a lot of season 1 to be closer to, like, a love that journey for me, whereas I think a lot of the
Mhm.
later seasons as time goes on, we're looking more at full bouquets and, like, some hot shits. Like, it's
Yeah.
because it really, like, we've said this at the beginning of the podcast proper of, like, yes, the show takes a little bit to get going, and it's not, like, full throttle out the gate, but I feel like at this point, we are fully baked into these characters now, you know? Like,
Mhm.
do you feel that? Do you feel, like, connected to these characters at this point, Stuart?
Oh, completely. Like I didn't think that I would come to actually care about these like this family as much as I do already. And it's because they are meant to be almost anti-heroes. They are meant to be like the
Mhm.
people you're not meant to root for. But like they've shown vulnerability, I mean, which is kind of like hard not to do when their entire life is imploded. And yeah, they
Yeah.
are like kind of vapid. They are really kind of like self-indulgent, but they're unapologetic about it because it's who they are. And so you can't help but kind of like grow to love them a bit. And I think the supporting cast as well, like same thing. I'm getting pulled into the whole I'm even getting pulled into like Roland and Jocelyn's whole like situation. And of
Mhm.
course, like Stevie is like wonderful. So yeah. I'm finding that I'm slowly beginning to love this group of people, which is surprising this early on.
Yeah, yeah. So Bad Parents at the top of the heap right now and Love That Journey for me with The Drip and Don't Worry It's a Sister, and then in You David is Our Cup Runneth Over. Stuart, the next episode is titled The Cabin.
That sounds like a horror film. Are we gonna get like a creepy episode, maybe?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to wait and
I
see.
mean, you
I
say
don't
you don't
know.
know. You've watched it how many times in the last couple of weeks?
Oh, I know. I know exactly what this episode is. And I'm really
Ooh,
excited for it. So yeah,
interesting.
it'll be fun.
Yeah, in terms of theories, I think maybe yeah, it could be a horror thing, or I think it's going to be some sort of discovery of something that's going to like throw chaos into the world. So yeah,
Okay.
looking forward to that.
I also have to issue a very quick corrections corner because when we were talking about Bob the man Bob, I said I think he is one of the most beloved side characters on the show, and I was quickly met with a "What the f are you talking about? Bob isn't our favorite side character." My
Yes.
mistake. I thought people loved Bob like I love Bob. I guess that's not the case. I mean, we could see this episode with Ronnie, right? Like, I think the great thing about Ronnie is like she does not care if you are
Hmm.
famous or like you're a rose or whatever. Like, she will tell it like it is. And I think that's like something that is very like people love about Ronnie. I just thought people loved Bob more. Okay? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm this is heartening because it means that if I disagree with you on things, maybe I am the one at one with the people who are listening to
Mm.
this podcast. I'm here to be your representatives, people. We don't have to listen to Jess, it's fine.
Yeah, yeah. Stuart can be the voice of the people. Can I ask, actually, this many episodes in, we're now 4 episodes in. Do you have a favorite character so far? I feel like I might know who it is.
I mean, every time Mario comes on screen, I am giddy because I know that every line is going to be a complete banger. But I'm really liking David. I never thought I
Yeah.
would, but like I really like David.
The acting is Dan Levy is like an absolute genius. Every
Hmm.
facial expression David makes is like over the top. Even when
Yeah.
he's at the thrift store and like he's just like waiting, like he looks infuriated just
Yeah.
standing there.
It's
So yeah,
it's the narrow eyes and the nodding and the kind of like
the head
skepticism
tilts.
and just
Yeah.
yeah, it's just wonderful.
Hmm. So no Moira wig watch this week. She didn't wear any wigs in this episode. Of course, we saw the wig wall. But hopefully next episode we'll have some wigs to talk about. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe, talking shit. Follow me on Twitter at the Jess Sterling. Stuart is at Stuart Drinks Tea. Beyond this, I'm also on Shit 90 Shows Taught Me, talking about Buffy, talking about Felicity, talking about 90s movies. Once upon a time, you could hear me on Pusher Recaps, but that time is quickly coming to an end. So go check out any of the backlog of anything I covered there. Stuart, anything else you want to plug or anything else people should be checking out?
I can think of course, like I said last time, check out the sister kind of like pods of networks that are cropping up, Screen and Page, Well with Podcasts, Arcade Pizza, like they're all cropping up. Check out our friends; they deserve some love, and they're putting out some really good stuff. So yeah,
Yes. All right. Well, until next time, I don't know. Still haven't figured out how to end the podcast. We talked about funky clothing. We talked about are the Royces good parents. Maybe
we're
we just
workshopping it at the end
I
again.
can't. I still can't every time. Every time, people. One day we will figure it out. Maybe now I'll just end by saying, "She said what?"